Hello! So, I've been meaning to record this one for probably far too long. But here we are, GSC Season 3. I've kind of alluded to this one a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean I feel like I've alluded to it quite a lot, but that's because I've done a ton of recordings that haven't gone up yet. Just because like, I've been trying to record and things have been going wrong. And anyway, GSC Season 3. This one's exciting. So, we are in 2 other leagues that I've already uploaded. Go check the draft analysis for those, because those are already up. GSC Season 3, I don't know if it was the first 2 seasons, but like, I was in for like 2 of the seasons. I think there might have been a prior season, but I think it was under a different name. I don't know. I don't know the history of it. I wasn't there at the start anyway. But I am here now. And so this is my 3rd season of it, so I'm just calling it GSC Season 3, and that's what they're calling it as well, so. Anyway. So, GSC Season 3. This one is very interesting, because it is a low-tier draft. Now, I've never done a low-tier draft. I haven't done many drafts to begin with, but a low-tier draft is very interesting. To give an idea, like, the top-end mons, with the 18-pointers, they were things like, I think, Blaziken, Incineroar, what else was up there? I'm trying to think what else was up there, but it was like that sort of think about like 10 to 11 point mon range in like a standard draft, and that was kind of your top end, essentially. Some things kind of stuck through, some things we kind of got like sorted out, some things were explained, because originally Toxtricity was going to be an 11-point mon, and people were like, Toxtricity and low tier drafts kind of spooky, so. Other things like Regieleki and Regidrago didn't make it through, but like, yeah, they from what other people have said coming into this draft, they've said that this is probably one of the better low tier, like, tier lists they've seen, which is promising, because I've never done one, and saying that, like, they kind of put this, the team, like, behind it, put it together, like, not, honestly, like, pretty quickly, was pretty impressive, so props off, hats off to them. The draft, however, itself was definitely a little bit controversial, because it was forced 11 mons with 110 points. Now, that makes drafting pretty difficult, not gonna lie. 11 mons, 110 points, that's not something I'm used to. Even when I was doing, like, even with UBL Season 3, we did 110 points, but I actually picked 10 mons. So 11 was a little bit dicey. But and this draft did not go the way I wanted it. I got sniped like 6 times, I think. I don't know if 6 times is right, but like I got sniped on some pretty important things that I wanted, and I had to change my draft drastically as a result. And initially I wasn't happy with the draft, but looking back on it, I think it's actually pretty solid. Definitely not my favourite draft, but I think using some of these mons is really going to make me appreciate some of them a bit more. So, let's get started. So, I was actually first pick. Now, I wasn't a fan of having first pick, to be honest, because I didn't know what was good. I didn't know what was, like, the go-to, because, like, you know, you're first pick in a regular draft, you're like, cool, I'll pick Dragapult, and, you know, you're good to go. You pick, like, you know, whatever. You pick something, like, you know what's really strong, but, like, what was what was the best pick, what was, like, you know, the go-to. And so I didn't know. I genuinely didn't know. So I kind of had a thought about it. I had a bit of a think about it, and I was like, you know what, I think that this mon is probably going to be one of the most versatile. There's not much, like, it's not a breaker, it's not something that's, like, going to be super hard to stop. But I think this Pokemon's going to be versatile enough that, like, it's going to be pretty difficult to know exactly what it wants to do when it comes. And it can come to a lot of matches. And that Pokemon is Crobat. Now, in low tier, Crobat actually is probably one of the fastest things. I mean, in regular draft anyway, Crobat's pretty fast. But I think in low tier, like, the only things that are matching it are, like, Jolteon. Acelgor's faster, but is a bug type, so it dies. And then, like, Ninjask. And other than that, and Mega Manectric. And I think that's it. that can really kind of keep up with Crobat's speed. And that's one of the reasons why I like it. It was a fast U-turner. You can go physical or special because of Nasty Plot sets. You can do Nasty Plot with like Heat Wave, Giga Drain, Air Slash, or Sludge Bomb, something like that. It's a defogger off the bat, really nice. You could just do having Bird Spam. I felt like there was probably going to be like every team was going to at least have a Rock, probably a Steel as well. But depending on how good their Steel is another question. Because that's one of the main things Crobat struggles with. And if Steel types were limited, good Steel types especially were limited. So like, excuse me, one of the main like answers to Crobat like being limited is pretty good. Every team was going to have an Electric type, but like fast Electric types are good, but not all Electric types are actually going to be as fast as Crobat. So like bringing in your Electric type to try and like scare out Crobat without it being able to U-turn out is actually pretty tricky. Obviously, like I say, can U-turn, it can defog, it can Brave Bird Spam, it can Roost Up, it can play a bulky role, or it can play a more offensive role. It's got a lot of different options. I think it can Taunt? Yeah, it can Taunt. It's got that 100% accurate Toxic due to being a Poison type. And it's a solid typing as well. Obviously, picking a Flying type off the bat isn't great, but like, off the bat. Hey, you see what I did there? But it's a really versatile mon, and I was like, this Pokemon gives me a lot of different options on what I can go with. And I had some ideas in mind. I wanted to go with a lot of pivoting, but that plan didn't really end up panning out as well. But it's like, Crobat was like the ideal start for that sort of idea, and while it didn't come to fruition, Crobat can still kind of get into the defensive pieces or the bulkier pieces of this team, which it's me, so of course I built like a reasonable amount of bulk. By reasonable, I mean probably a lot, but like, yeah. I was hoping to get something kind of fast to pair with Crobat, but like, the fastest one on my team is only base 105, so the speed gap is a bit awkward, but just having this top end speed is quite nice. So, that was first pick, and then I had to go through and I had to wait for all the picks, and I knew those two things I wanted. One of which we're going to get out of the way, because, hi, it's me, hello, I'm picking Florges. Florges was 13 points, and I call that steal. Florges was 11 points in the regular draft. And this was 2 points higher in low tier? I'm like, I'm taking that. Are you joking? Who doesn't take in special defense? This just gives me a blanket special, like, attacker check. Just generally. Like, again, steel types are limited, so like Florges' main counter is limited in this draft. Of just people just being able to bring in steel types for free. And I've, you know, managed to cover up steals fairly well with not as well as I'd like, but well enough with this team. It gives me a Wish Passer, it gives me another defogger. I felt like if I wasn't able, like, removing hazards, I didn't know how easy it would be. I didn't want to force that roll onto Crowbar all the time in case it wanted to go offensive, because Bird Spam is Bird Spam. If it has to play a defensive role, it can, but it can also play an offensive role. Just slap a Choice Band or a Life Orb on it and start going ham with Brave Birds. Whereas Florges is way more comfortable in just playing that defensive role, passing wishes to more of the bulky pieces of the team that can't recover, because again, this is low tier. There's not, your defensive pieces aren't always going to be able to recover, so I felt like having a solid Wish Passer that actually deals reasonable damage as well. Moonblast from base 112 special attack, pretty good. Obviously, like, you know, it's Florges. Like, I've had it in so many drafts at this point. Like, you kind of know what to expect with Florges with me. You know, it's a generally good, like, defensive piece that can work on most teams. So, I'm just happy to have Florges again. The other one was, the other kind of, because I got the wheel pick, so I picked two pieces, I picked two Pokemon at the same time. So I got Florges, and I wanted a bulky water type, and I was looking at the top end bulky water types, because I was like, okay, after going any further than the top end, none of the bulky waters could recover. None of them. And I was like, I want a bulky water that can recover. So originally I wanted Vaporeon, because I wanted Flip Turn, but I got taken, like, round 1. And I was like, that sucks. So I was contemplating between two. One of them was Jellicent. I was considering Jellicent. And I'm glad I didn't, in a sense, because otherwise I think I would have been too weak to Dark. And I'm glad I got this one instead. So I went with Gastrodon. I don't like times of all weaknesses. Swampert was another 18 pointer, actually. That was another one that was, like, up there. Gastrodon was only 15. Gastrodon, I mean, it gives me a nice water immunity off the bat, which is quite nice, like, let's be real. And also, like, not being able to be knocked off in, like, certain matchups is quite nice as well. The bulk is pretty solid, honestly. Like, the defenses don't show it, but, like, the HP just really carries this Pokemon hard. The typing really carries it hard. And, like, Gastrodon with Crowbar is, like, a really good combination. And then Florges can kind of fill in the middle. Gastrodon, like, resists both of Florges' weaknesses. And, again, like, the one weakness is Grass that, like, is pretty covered on this team, honestly. It's covered really well. Gastrodon has a lot of great options, like I say. I wanted a bulky water that could, like, heal itself and, you know, it has recover. Obviously, can just fire Scalds and Earth Powers and just kind of be just bulky and annoying. And really annoying to take down. And just because of its options with just, like, random moves, just throwing out random Toxics or Yawns, or even just throw off a Memento to bring in a sweeper late game. Gastrodon, I feel like, could be a big help to this team. Unfortunately, this is the point where this team really goes on the slow side. Because I went bulk, this team definitely feels a little slow, and that's definitely one of the downsides of it. However, I do try to patch that up a little bit. Like I say, I've got the top end speed with Crowbat, and then like I said, my next highest is 105, which isn't great. And I do try to mitigate it a bit, but it's not done especially well in my opinion. It could be done a lot better, but like I got taken on a few things that really made me forced me into some picks that I didn't want to go with originally, but looking back, I think they actually are still quite good. So, but as for Gastrodon itself, I am happy with it. I am actually going to be using East Gastrodon for the duration of this, because also it just looks nicer. Just in color construct, because I've already got like a ton of like pink, even at a nice blue. But yeah, Gastrodon is a super bulky Pokemon, and I'm glad to have it. So this was kind of like me building up a solid defensive core. And then I was like, okay, I got these, now I can wait on this pick, and there's no way it's going to go. And I wanted Mega Ampharos, and it went, and I was so disappointed, because I was like, why? Why? That was like the main thing I wanted. I wanted Mega Amphi. But I was asleep at the time. I left my picks. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to pick a... I left my picks with someone, and I was like, okay, yeah, can I get Mega Ampharos, and I want the Steel type, which I'll talk about afterwards. And then it said, sure, do you have any backups? So I had my backup. I got the Steel type I wanted, but Mega Ampharos got taken, and I was looking, and I was like, what would I want as a backup? And so I was looking at some like things that were cheaper than Mega Ampharos, because Mega Ampharos was only like 12 points or something. And I was like, if I got something cheaper than Mega Ampharos, I wasn't going to be happy with it. Especially if I just woke up and I saw that like I got like Dramper or something, and I was just like, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to wake up and be happy to see I got Dramper. So I looked at some higher tier stuff, and I was like, sure, I'll get that. And like I woke up, saw I got this, and went, that kind of sucks, because now I kind of got to like really change my draft. But like looking back on it, this one's kind of cracked. We got Dragalgi. This thing is way better than I always give it credit for. Every single time, because first of all, the stats aren't actually that bad. Like, I always kind of underestimate Dragalgi. Mainly because I always forget about stupid adaptability on this stupid thing. Poison Dragon coverage is actually pretty good. Like, you're basically only worried about steals, and you have Focus Blast if you really want it. For the Steel Grounds and the Steel Rocks, which in low tier there's actually a decent amount of. You know, the Steelix, there's Aggron. Okay, that's basically it. But also, like, because it's also a poison type that will generally run a water move. If nothing else, it's gonna run Flip Turn, which makes this one so much better. Because you like something's trying to switch into adaptability Dracos or Sludge Waves, you know, they're Steel types, and then you just Flip Turn on out. So it gives me that pivoting ability that like I was gonna have with Mega Ampharos, and instead I just get with Dragalgi. Again, it's really slow, but Mega Ampharos was gonna be slow anyway. It gives me that dragon that I wanted. It also gives me another poison type, which was something I had to change my draft for. Because I had 2 poisons and I had like no psychic resist, I had to change my draft accordingly. I make it so I wasn't as psychic weak. That was one of the like main downsides of having Dragalgi. But the upsides of it, this mon's strong. Looking at the calcs of this thing, this mon's very strong. It does kind of need a boosting item to really hit the damage that it needs sometimes. But it's really strong. And also one thing that I really like about it is it actually gives me access to T-Spikes. Something I didn't really consider about it at first. But the fact that it can just also, T-Spikes flip turn and actually play a bit more of a bulky offense role instead of just like trying to, just break everything. It's really nice. So Dragalgi, a mon I wasn't super happy to get at first, is a mon that I'm way more happy to get now. And its weakness is what, like, the main one is ground, honestly. That's the main weakness, because, like, EQs just kind of hurt this thing a lot. But we have Crowbar, we've got a bulky water and Gastrodon, and we actually end up picking up some other bits that can help out with Dragalgi's weaknesses as well. And Psychic as well, but again, Psychic I do try to patch up. And that leads me on to the other wheel pick. So I said I wanted a Steel type alongside this, and I got the Steel type I wanted. If I didn't get the Steel type I wanted, I actually would have been kind of screwed because of points. And to say this is a Steel type I wanted, I'm surprised I actually wanted it after my last time using this thing and how disappointed I was with it. But I said, I've got to give this thing another chance. People say it's, like, not bad. I've got to give it another go. And in low tier, I said to myself, I want, like, one, if not the best. I want a good Steel type that's remaining. Because, it's like, Steel types, like, there weren't many good ones. I wanted a decent Steel type if it was remaining. So I grabbed Fortress. Now, last time I used Fortress, I had it in GSC Season 1. I used it once and I hated it. Because it didn't take hits. But I think I've just got to be smarter with Fortress. That's the main thing. Fortress with Florges is actually pretty solid. Just because, again, like, Fortress, like, takes the hits that Florges wants to take. Like, Gastrodon Florges Fortress is a really good type. Like, it's just a good defensive core. You got the Wish passing for Fortress. You got Gastrodon kind of just to soak up all the hits in between. And be really generally annoying. And Fortress, this is my main stealth rocker. That's another really bad thing about this team, is like, this is my main stealth rocker. So if I want rocks, I've probably got to bring this. Thankfully, I have other hazards, thanks to Dragalgi. T-Spikes are definitely enough sometimes to just whittle down a team. But the one advantage is, like, sure, I don't have many hazards. I've got 2 rockers, and then, like, spikes on this, and then 2 T-Spikers. But that's honestly, like, enough. Like, especially if Fortress are going to be coming to most weeks anyway, just because it's such a good bulky steal in low tier. In upper tiers, it's not going to be as... I still probably not going to like it as much, but, like, the low tier, and if I can learn how to use this thing properly, I think I can make it work. It gives me a spinner as well, which is super nice. Like, I'm not just relying on defog. And it can Volt Switch, which, again, like, I was trying to go with the pivoting theme, and, this thing can set rocks and Volt Switch out. And slow Volt Switching into some of my offensive pieces, like Dragalgi, and even Crowbat if it goes on the offensive, and some of the other Pokemon that I end up drafting, means this Pokemon can, like, it can play that defensive pivot piece. Obviously that's low special defense doesn't help. Obviously special attacks can come in quite easily, but like, it's also got that one weakness. And with this team having 2 resistances to it already, and I think I at least pick up 1 more, I'd like to say. A resistance to fire. I'd like to say I pick up 1 more. Maybe not. I can't quite remember. This definitely helps. This definitely helps a lot. And I'm really hoping that Fortress can at least impress me this time, because last time it didn't. So yeah, that is Fortress. So, just double checking, because I've been at this for a little bit. Okay, we still got, like, time before I can switch songs. So, next 2 picks. This was where I knew I had to change my draft strategy, because originally there was certain Pokemon I wanted. One of them was Dodrio. I'm actually really glad I didn't get Dodrio, because I did not realize that Jump Kick was removed from the game, and that was one of the main reasons I wanted it, because of Jump Kick. I was like, cool, I can get Dodrio, and it's got great coverage, and that's great. But it doesn't get Jump Kick anymore, because it's a cut move, so that sucks. So I'm glad I didn't go for Dodrio. I knew I had to get a Dark type. That's something I knew I had to get. I was like, I don't have a choice, I have to get a Dark type. And as I've said in the past, I'm pretty picky with my Dark types. But there was one I saw and I went, you know what, this Pokemon's given me trouble in the past. So I'm going to pick it, because if a Pokemon's given me trouble in regular draft, then I think it's probably at least worth, like, looking at. And, again, this Pokemon wasn't much more expensive than, like, in regular draft itself, so I ended up grabbing Spiritomb. Again, a really slow Pokemon. You can kind of see where it's coming from with, like, oh dear, the speeds, like, you know, 39, 44, 40, and 35. You can see why I was a bit worried about my speeds being far too low. This team is slow. But Spiritomb, I wanted a bulky Dark type, and this was the best bulky Dark type on the board. Like, Dark types just didn't exist. Spiritomb, 1 weakness to Fairy, and I've got 2 poison types and a Steel. Like, this is a team for Spiritomb to work. And other than that low speed and kind of low HP, Spiritomb's a pretty solid Pokemon. With access to Calm Mind and Nasty Plot, it can really go on the offense. It can set up and sweep on the special side. You know, with a pretty scary to switch in Door Stab combination, just because, like, you basically, if you don't have a Dark type, it's not easy to switch into Spiritomb at all, without a Dark type of your own. Like, that's all, like, a Fairy, which teams are going to have Fairies, but, like, not all of them are going to be able to switch into this, and plus, you've got the, you know, the potential of just slapping a Choice Band on this thing, and using Poltergeist, and with 90 to attack, that still hits reasonably hard, especially for a move that, you know, has 1 immunity and 1 resist, and not all teams are, like, teams are going to try to have a Dark type, sure, but not all teams are going to have a normal type. It also can perform, like, the defensive bulky role if it needs to. You know, it's got Pain Split to recover, or you know, rest. It's got Will-O-Wisp, which I really, really like. It can Memento. It can do some really cool stuff. Debond if it wants to. It can do, like, Will-O-Wisp Hex stuff if it really wants. But, like, it gets some really interesting stuff that I'm excited to just see. And, like I say, this is a Pokemon that's given me trouble in the past. I also now have 2 Infiltratormons in both Spiritomb and Crowbar, which I'm kind of cool with, because that just makes sub less of an issue, which is nice. So yeah, it's a mon that can go physically or specially offensive. It can play a bulky role, and really the only downsides are the HP and speed. If this thing if they, like, made it more of even then, like, if they just gave it, like, 30 more speed and, like, 30 more HP, this mon would be insanely good. I mean, that would put it, like, 540. That would be, like, putting it, like, close to, like, Blissey BSD, which is, like, fine. You know, even, like, 75 HP, like, this mon would just be so much better, and, you know, people would actually use it more, but, I'm excited to see what kind of ways I can use Spiritomb, because it was a mon I needed just because I needed to patch up weaknesses that had been created because of, like, how the draft had gone for me. So, next up, my Electric type. Because I never got Mega Ampharos, I still need an Electric type. I was looking at a few, I don't really remember what at this point, and, like, nothing was really appealing to me, because I was just like, I want an Electric type, it's a really good type to have on the team, but nothing really stood out to me. And then for some, I think I was looking at it and I went, dude, I just died to Freeze Dry. So, I went with a Pokemon that could actually switch into Freeze Dry, and that was Rotum Frost. So, I think, so all 3 singles leagues I'm currently in, I have a Rotom for. And I think that just says the value of Rotom forms. They're super bulky, pretty, like, despite a lack of moveset, they're pretty versatile, and I preferred this one over Fan because I already have a Flying type. It gives me a nice Ice type, like, Electric Ice is it's a really tough type to switch into. It's just the downside of it is, one, it's an Ice type itself, so it dies to rocks, so it's kind of this forced to run boots if it wants to play any form of defensive role. And the fact that it has to run Blizzard over Ice Beam. But other than that, like, it can do what the other Rotom forms do. It can play that defensive role. with Will-O-Wisp and Defog, and it could be a dedicated Defog. You know, that gives me 1, 2, 3 Defoggers and a Rapid Spinner. I think that's the last of the hazard removal on the team. We could, you know, Nasty Plot and try and sweep. Again, relies on Blizzards, but you know, maybe. Can it set Hail? Something will be able to set Hail. Can Gastrodon set Hail? I feel like Gastrodon can set Hail. Yeah, Gastrodon can set Hail. Can Dragalgi set Hail and then flip turn out? Yes! There we go. We found a way to make Rotum Frost work. I want to say Rotum Fan. Whatever. Like, either way, like, Rotum Frost is, like, a solid electric type. Again, more playing on the bulky role, but, like, at least this mon is, like, faster than, like, at this point, this is my second fastest Pokemon, which is not a good thing. But having this bulky electric type to switch into things, you know, this is a great flying switch in as well, which I didn't really have before, because, like, my steel type didn't resist flying either. So, like, this is my main flying switch in as well, which, you know, this is a pretty good deterrent to flying types, I'm not going to lie, because it can hit... I can't think of a flying type off the top of my head that this can't hit the super effective damage, or at least neutral, just because of electric ice, so... yeah, nothing really much more to say about Rotum Frost. It's a good bulky electric. As I say, I like my, what are they called? I like my Rotum forms, so, yeah. There we go, more music. So, that leaves us to pick 8 and 9. So so there's two things I was getting this round. The first was a Pokemon I wanted from the start. One of the Pokemon I looked at before, because I'm still missing some pretty important types. I've got my Water type, but I haven't filled out a Fire, Water, Grass core at all. So I knew I needed a Fire type and a Grass type. I also knew I needed a Psychic type to help patch up, you know, the Psychic weakness on the team. And then I still had to fill out one more Pokemon after that, so yeah. But I knew there was a Fire type I wanted, and I didn't want this one to be gone. Whether it would get picked or not, I didn't know, but this was one that I felt like if I let this one go and I don't get it, then I think this draft is in a lot of trouble. Because this is my speed. Say hello to Rapidash. I actually really like Rapidash. There was a lot of this team, I was trying to go for reenacting a Gen 6 PU team I used. And the whole idea of it was to use Dodrio Rapidash, and you would just, like, blitz through everything. That, again, Dodrio kind of didn't work out just because it wasn't as good as I was hoping it to be, and I didn't think it was as worth at that point, and, like, I ended up getting Crowbar anyway, so, like, Dodrio didn't really work, but, like, Dodrio with Rapidash can definitely work anyway. It gives me a fire immunity, which is nice. Can't complain of fire immunity, that's for sure. I guess I can also run Flame Body to punish U-turns, but this thing is actually, like, pretty hard to switch into. Again, teams are going to be slower, and so even something above base 100 is actually pretty solid. And with Flare Blitz, Wild Charge, Drill Run, that kind of... High Horsepower instead, that's even better. I didn't know I got that. And Mega Horn, and Low Kick, and Play Rough, like, this thing has really good coverage. Like, the downside is, like, it's not that strong in reality. And you will, like, destroy yourself in recoil for the most part, but if you can play around it, like, this is a really solid breaker. You get Sword Stance? I never thought it got Sword Stance. Throat Chop too. I'm learning a lot more about Rapidash than I thought I would today. But this gets a lot better coverage, like, than I actually even thought. And I wanted it literally because it had fire, electric, and ground coverage, and it gets all that as well. Like, yeah. It's not an easy Pokemon to switch into, and that was the point of it. I wanted a really good physical breaker that wasn't, you know, relying on Crowbar to be my main physical breaker. And again, it gives me that upper speed tier. It's actually not the worst on bulk. Honestly, like 65, 70, 80, like, it will at least switch into something, and, like, it will take a resisted hit, like, reasonably well. It does have Baton Pass if it needs to switch out, but yeah. And I guess technically it could play a bulky role if it wants to with Flame Body or whatever, Morning Sun, do weird stuff like that. But for the most part, this was a cheap fire type that I knew I wanted to grab from the start. I'm hoping to break some teams with this mon. Because it's not the easiest Pokemon to switch into, so. So that is Rapidash. Next up, as I said, I needed a Psychic type, and I took a risk with this Psychic type for sure. Because there were a few Psychic types I was looking at, and I went, you know what, I'm going to go with this one, because again, I'm kind of lacking on the physical attackers. It's not a Psychic Resist, but honestly, this Pokemon, it feels like so good that, like, I think I can make it work. So I'm taking a risk with this Psychic type, and I'm going with Gallade. It gives me another, like, kind of middling speed tier, so, like, you know, I've got something between, like, Florges and Rotum Frost. But regular Gallade, I thought, okay, this is a Pokemon that can bulk up and sweep a team. It can hold a Life Orb and just go on the offensive. It can Sword Stance. It can play utility. Like, and this was 10 points, and I went, you know what, this one gives this team a lot more versatility than I think it would have had otherwise, and it's like, and I was like, the main reason I justified it was like, okay, they can't run Psychic, they've got to go Size Shock if I've got Gallade, and that makes Fortress a much better switch-in, because if they're going Psychic, then like AV Gallade eats that for days, and then like, and if they go Size Shock, then Fortress eats that for days, so it's like, I've kind of got like both ends covered. And that was basically my justification for this. But otherwise, this thing hits like a truck. Like, base 125 attack, I think is like the highest actual offensive stat on the team. Discounted Dragalgi is like, you know, adaptability stuff. Like, this is the actual, like, best, like, non-ability reliant breaker on the team. And it can set up Sword Stances or Bulk Ups. Or it can play more of a defensive role, and, you know, that was another thing, knockoff. I knew I wanted knockoff, because every team... Oh, my goodness, excuse me. Every team was going to have an EV-Light user. I could almost guarantee it. It was low tier, everyone's going to have an EV-Light user. And I picked up Spiritomb, and I knew it didn't have knockoff, and I was like, I have to get something with knockoff. So if I don't have something with knockoff, then what am I going to do to the bulky EV-Light ones? So I was like, Gallade is worth it. For knockoff... for being able to at least switch into Psychic types reasonably well, for being able to set up and sweep teams, for just being an offensive mon, for being utility, because it can just play a utility role because of Will-O-Wisp, honestly. Will-O-Wisp and Teleport kind of give it that utility role, and Wish. So it can play a more defensive utility role if it needs to, but for the most part, this thing will just kind of, you know, be a beast. And again, like, also, like, Justified is kind of cool. Though I actually don't think I have a Dark Week on this team, which is kind of surprising. Yeah, no, I don't have a Dark Week on this team, despite having a Ghost type and a Psychic type. Yeah, that's kind of cool. No Dark Weeks, which is cool. So yeah, that was Gallade, and that was where a lot of the rest of my points went, because I was like, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take a risk. But this mon looks so good that it felt too hard to pass up. So, so that left me going, leaving Mons go, and I had 5 points coming back to me to get my final 2 picks. And I was like, well, I need a Grass type, and then I'm probably just going to have to get something for 1 point. So I looked at the low tier Grass types, and not many of them were good. But 2 were stuck out to me, and I kind of asked about them to some people, and they said, yeah, no, they can actually be reasonable. Like, they're not the best, obviously, but, like, if you're looking for, like, a cheap Grass type, they can probably work just fine. I was looking at stuff like Lilligant as well, but I was like, no, I'm going to try and take something to Cassette Hazard. So my choices were basically between Quilladin and what I ended up taking, Grottle. So both of them have a hazard option. Grottle can set, Grottle gets Stealth Rocks, while Quilladin gets Spikes. Both of them kind of middle forms of, physically bulky Grass types, with Quilladin of Chestnut and Grottle of Torterra. Quilladin, evolving into a better of the 2, but that's generally because of typing and also other things, because it can actually do other things, where Torterra's not seen as very good. Whereas Grottle to Quilladin, like, Quilladin's a bit on the bulkier side, whereas Grottle can actually deal reasonable damage. I don't think it gets Woodhammer, but I'm sure it gets Seed Bomb. Yeah, so it can actually, like, deal reasonable damage with that instead. And like I say, the main thing was Stealth Rocks. So I felt like Stealth Rocks were going to be more important than just Spikes, due to, like, people are going to have to make sacrifices on certain mons, like, you know, the Flying types and, you know, Fire types and things like that. Like, I felt like there were going to be more sacrifices, and not just, like, just having... Then, like, Stealth Rocks I felt like were more important just because of, like, I had Fortress already. Like, if Fortress was my only rocker, that felt really bad. Whereas at least Grottle kind of gives me the option to go otherwise. Like, it means I can bring Fortress and Grottle. Now that I say that out loud, that's not the best of ideas. But I can bring, you know, if Fortress really isn't good into a matchup, I can bring Grottle instead, and Grottle can actually take, like, fire hits better than Fortress can. Which is sad to say, but it's got better base HP, and with an Eviolite, I think it's got better defense. So, it can do funny curse stuff if it wants. It can Leech Seed. It doesn't have the best, but for 4 points, I felt like this was probably the best I was going to get for a Grass type, and I did want to make sure I had a Grass type just to make sure I could cover my bases on grounds. Not that I have many ground weaknesses, because my Electric type is immune. My Steel is not weak to ground. Really, my only weaknesses are Rapidash and Dragalgi, but Dragalgi is a big one, so I wanted to make sure my bases were covered. At least a little bit, so... and that left us with 1 point, and if you guys remember SXOC, you know what I'm doing with my 1 point. Give me Swirlix, baby! So, yeah, if you guys didn't see that one, Swirlix basically does one thing, and that's the fact that this is a 1 point Pokemon that gets access to Sticky Webs, because it's the pre-evolve form of Slurpuff. So, that's it. That's all it really does. It has a second fairy type, that doesn't really matter. Like, this is a like a non-mon, but like at the same time it gives this relatively slow team the access to webs, which is nice. Not that webs helps with some things, like I think even max speed Dragalgi doesn't benefit that much from webs. But things like Gallade especially is a mon that super appreciates webs. Because max speed Gallade, like while webs are up on the opponent's side, probably outspeeds their entire team. Almost guaranteed. Rapidash for sure outspeeds everything. Rotom, I would imagine outspeeds most things. It just gives me that option where like webs, if webs look really good into a matchup, then I have that like option. So yeah, you can kind of see the full team here. You can see how much everything costs as well. But yeah, I definitely took a risk. I had to take risks with this draft because my original plan kind of fell through. But I think I actually pulled out reasonably well. I don't think my draft is the best by far. But when I didn't really know I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. But I'm not too upset with this draft. I think it can do some solid work. I'm just hoping not to just go like and get bodied by everyone, to be honest. This league is also massive, by the way. Like I think like last season, like we had 2 divisions of 12 coaches. This season we've got 3 divisions of 12 coaches, so playoffs is going to be mad. I think it is still top 6. It's top 6 to get into playoffs. It was top 6 for last season as well. If I make playoffs, I'll be stunned. I'm going to be honest, because I don't think my team is that good. I think I'm going to have to really rely on play and also learn what every mon really does to like full extent. So, but yeah, that is about it. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, I look forward to the first match. Playing the first match this weekend, I believe. So yeah, that'll be about it. So thank you very much for watching. And I will see you guys in the next video. So take it. I had to get one flub in there, didn't I? Take it easy, everyone, and peace.